And then it was time for Toronto to drown in the sweet sorrow of the spoiler warning. Hope people get that reference. If you don't, I'm just purely insane. Welcome everybody. My name is Tom Colohue. Today we're going to be talking about Bray Wyatt. Firstly and most importantly, I feel, will he be returning to wrestling and where? Because we've seen no end to rumours of his impending return to WWE, his impending debut in AEW, and of course his more Hollywood, more studious works, which sort of walk away from that and suggest that maybe we're not going to see that much Bray Wyatt in the near future after all. This is, of course, also an Ask Me Anything stream. We will be going into quite a lot of details and trying to answer any and all questions that you have. So, make sure to get your questions in. I'll be answering as many of them as I can and going for about an hour as per, unless we run out of questions before then, but we have not done that for a while. Firstly, just want to say hi to everyone who's already jumped in and said hi. Austin Palmeter, who says, I was at SmackDown this past, Friday. It was pretty cool. Got two shows because SmackDown got taped for next Friday. Drew vs. Roman, Wrestlemania Backlash, definitely now. It does seem to be confirmed at this point, and my god have I seen the world of spoilers, so I can't exactly say otherwise. Christopher Lona says, hey Tom, hope you're good, looking forward to today's show. Hey Chris, how you doing, mate? Great to see you. Ed says, we'll catch up on catch up. Playing Blood on the Clock Tower right now, and feel free to raid on Twitch after your stream. I may well do that, Ed. I may well do that. That's certainly something of interest to me, I'll tell you that. Brandon says, hello there, Tom. Hope you're well, mate. Ready and keen for spoiler warning tonight. I'm glad you're ready and I'm glad you're keen. Good things are a-coming. Freaks of Wrestling podcast says, is the rumours true that Asuka is Becky Lynch's next feud? It was posted on Reddit. I will answer that one right after we go through our main news, our main topic, because I want to make sure that particular piece of news comes out first. Of course, just before we jump into what's going on with Bray Wyatt, please do be aware that we are looking for likes and subscriptions on YouTube, and of course follows on Twitch as well. So if you've not yet done so, please remember to hit thumbs up on this video, subscribe if you haven't already. We actually had double figures in likes and double figures in people waiting before the show started, which is tremendous, and I can only say a massive thanks to every one of you who was there literally when I clicked go live. The announcement tweet on Twitter hasn't even gone live yet. So Bray Wyatt is currently in the UK at a For the Love of Wrestling show in Liverpool, and he's been asked a number of different questions by a number of different people with a number of different videos appearing on social media of Bray Wyatt saying this, that and the other. Bray Wyatt is himself incredibly cryptic, just incredibly cryptic, which makes it very difficult to work out exactly what the situation is. But after being released by the WWE, Bray Wyatt, now known by his actual name of Wyndham Rotunda, has been involved in a number of different projects, none of which have really seen the light of day as of yet. Because initially of COVID and restrictions there, it's taken him a little time to get things off the ground, but also it takes time to secure funding for the quite extravagant projects that he wants to jump into. Bray Wyatt is planning to go into the film industry, and he already has significant backing financially and just generally in order to make that happen. We are past the pitch phase. He is actively creating content, and we will be seeing at least trailers of that relatively soon. I would give it about a year. As regards Bray Wyatt's future, this raises a major question, particularly about Bray Wyatt and wrestling. Bray Wyatt, to my knowledge, is not someone likely to return to wrestling in any time soon. So it's going to be a while before we see Bray Wyatt, if in fact we see Bray Wyatt. However, with the funding already secured, if he is inclined to return to wrestling, it will be soon. It will not be soon. It will take a little time, but it will be to the WWE. Bray Wyatt essentially has priced himself out of a move to several of the smaller companies which have already reached out to him, such as, for example, Impact, and also companies that have reached out to him that do have the money, for example, AEW. The reason that he has priced himself out is due to a lack of interest in returning to wrestling. Bray Wyatt believes at this point, according to people in his circle, that he can tell better stories without wrestling being involved, essentially by detaching from the whole pro wrestling concept. Bray Wyatt, or at least Wyndham Rotunda, believes he can tell simply more interesting stories and more exciting concepts going forwards. I doubt there are many people who actually disagree with that when you look at what sort of thing Bray Wyatt has actually been creating, even in his brief time in the WWE. As regards the competition between AEW and WWE, not long after Bray Wyatt was released by the WWE, we had our first contact from AEW. All Elite Wrestling, to my knowledge, are interested, if possible, in securing the services of Bray Wyatt. However, to be blunt, Bray Wyatt himself doesn't seem altogether interested there. Bray Wyatt has been encouraged to work a number of different shows by a number of different people, primarily Braun Strowman, or at least formerly known as Braun Strowman, and formerly known as Eric Rowan. I nearly said a wrong name there, and I do apologise just for thinking that. Formerly known as Eric Rowan. There is a hope and indeed an intention to build a new Wyatt family and tell a new story in the Wyatt family mould. It just wouldn't necessarily be the WWE in which that would be happening. The WWE will not give Bray Wyatt the creative control he is looking for in order to tell the stories that he wishes to. And after basically the entire run of The Fiend, for the entirety of that, the WWE management and creative were getting involved in storytelling. And that, to be blunt, was not making Bray Wyatt happy. Instead, it was making him very unhappy, to the point that he was seemingly quite happy to be released when he was. He has had conversations with other wrestling companies. None of them have promised him the creative control or the financial backing that he is looking for. And of course, the only ones that will are quite low down the pecking order, such as, for example, Control Your Narrative. Yeah. Yep, I said that. I said that thing. To recap, Bray Wyatt at the moment has very little interest in returning to wrestling. He has intentionally priced himself out of availability in a lot of different directions due to a belief that he will not have the financial backing or the creative license to tell the stories that he intends to tell. Bray Wyatt is protective of his character, he's protective of the story, and he believes he can tell a better story outside of wrestling and in movies, Hollywood, as it were. There have been a ton of different reports stating that Bray Wyatt will be returning, but not returning, I should say, debuting in AEW. Not a single one of them have been true. And you all know what I'm talking about. Every couple of weeks, every couple of months, there's a big AEW event and you see a massive swell of rumours. This is going to be the one for Bray Wyatt. This is going to be the one for Bray Wyatt. It has never been the one for Bray Wyatt. We are still waiting for the moment at which we see Bray Wyatt again. At the moment, he is continuing to tour and he is continuing to essentially fundraise for film. Right, Freaks of Wrestling has asked about the rumour of Asuka and Becky Lynch. Here's the thing. Now, this basically was just a rumour posted on Reddit, and the Squared Circle people have said, yeah, this is definitely legit. I don't know if it's legit, but what I will say is that Asuka is expected back very, very soon. But she was expected back in February, she was expected back in March, she was expected back in April. Something is happening with Asuka that they keep pushing it back. It's not like Bayley where they're still waiting for a storyline or still deciding what to do with her character. It's not like Alexa Bliss where they're just waiting for the right moment and the right bit of storytelling. It's very much a very confusing situation where Asuka should be cleared, should be back in action, but isn't as of yet. And that is just baffling. Side T, welcome back to the show, mate. Thank you very, very kindly for the super chat donation. So sorry not being around. Fell off a ladder, but the painkillers are fun. Watched on catch up and always a good show. Thank you very much for catching up, as it were. Thank you very much for the generous donation, and I really do hope you feel better soon, mate. That does not sound like fun. It really doesn't. As regards Becky Lynch and Asuka, I'm confident will be returning soon. As I have mentioned, Becky Lynch will not be in the championship picture immediately. So I would expect to see Becky Lynch feuding with other people at least for a little while. Bayley is someone that I've mentioned. Asuka is certainly someone who's possible as well. And then there are other names such as Liv Morgan. As I've mentioned, the Four Horsewomen fading into the background a little bit more. It will start with Becky Lynch. Now, I'm just going to pop over to my Twitter and retweet my announcement tweet for this show. If you're currently watching on YouTube and you have not yet done so, please do consider hitting the like button. That little thumbs up can make a real big difference to the show. And I'm just going to grab this tweet, copy the link to it, and paste it for anyone on Twitch and or YouTube to share if you would like to. That is one of the main things that has been creating growth on these channels, and I'll be very grateful for the continued support. In the meantime, let's see what people are saying. Simon says, hey Tom. Hello Simon. Noob says, hello Tom, how are you doing today? Doing very, very well, thank you. I've been examining some of my YouTube algorithm stuff, and basically I've skipped a few shows too many, and YouTube's not happy with me. So you'll see me being a little more consistent from here on out. There is a video coming into the members only section that will be coming in on Tuesday. And then I have a couple of videos planned over the next few weeks, which I'll just be recording ahead of time because it's not timely content, as it were. So I'm keeping myself busy. Brandon says, puddles me that they would tease Shinsuke and Roman only to have nothing develop further. They did this last time too, when Roman cost Nakamura a chance at the title, I believe it was, and they didn't go any further with it then either. That was around Royal Rumble time a little while back. Just a little while back. I want to say a year and 3 months ago, when Kevin Owens got the opportunity in the end, after you had everything with Adam Pearce. A fun time. Like an enjoyable time. I really did enjoy some of that period, but Nakamura missing out on that shot was confusing at the time. I'm just very confused by the whole thing, personally. I was excited to see Nakamura come out after WrestleMania and step up to Roman, but the fact that he was there for the Lumberjacks and nothing else suggests to me that this has been abandoned as soon as it started. Noob says Bray Wyatt also posted a picture that is something out of HR Geiger. Interesting. I did see that picture. It's exciting. I know that Bray Wyatt's a big Lovecraft fan, so HR Geiger, not a surprise to me. Amazing guy, welcome. Says Bray will go back to WWE in the summer, I think, like Brock last year. Brock Lesnar was never leaving the WWE. Even while he was not contracted to the WWE, he was never leaving the WWE. That simply was never going to happen. Brock Lesnar, everyone in WWE was confident that he would return as soon as needed. That is something that I've mentioned way, way back when, and it's still very much the case. Michael says, hi Tom. Hello, Michael. Simon says, not really a Bray Wyatt fan. Far, so I don't really care at all. Well, nice to know. Hope that doesn't offend any Bray Wyatt The Fiend fans. I'm sure they'll be okay. Brandon says, how about Cesaro? Any inkling of where he might go next? I've heard absolutely nothing on Cesaro as far as I can tell. He's basically faded quietly into the background, as it were. Mike, I will get to your question. Please do bear with me while I catch up. Brandon says, I think Cesaro would shine on a world title run somewhere like Impact if they could afford him. Ultimately, if there's no interest in, for example, from AEW, Impact might be the backup option, as it were. So when it comes to affording, firstly you have to consider interest. Sai says, it struck me watching WWE lately that their female roster is maybe stronger than their men's these days in terms of top challenges for the belts. No problem with that at all. Times have changed. They have indeed. This is of course despite so many women being released compared to the men previous. Of course, if anyone is not aware, the reason I've read Sai's comment nice and quick there is because channel members do get they get a bit of extra leeway when it comes to the reading of channel comments. So if you've got that little icon, if your name's in green or blue, as is the case of Ed, you will get a little bit of specialist. Ed says, feel better, Sai, but all those wrestlers fall off and get right back up. They do. Sai, I feel what Ed is trying to say is stop being soft. I don't mean that, just to be clear. Simon says, people moaning on Twitter about Becky's return feud possibly being Asuka. It's what Becky wants, her legendary rivalry retold in a different way, so if Becky's happy, I'm happy. Asuka took Becky's champion. I'd imagine that means championship, and she didn't take it. Becky handed it off to her. As regards the idea of Becky versus Asuka, Becky has been Asuka's greatest supporter, greatest cheerleader, as it were, for a long, long time. Essentially since Asuka first won the championship on the main roster, Becky has had her corner. There's a number of other people whose corner Becky also has, and to be clear, The idea of many people on Twitter seems to be that they will only be happy if Becky Lynch is the champion. Also, they will only be happy if Becky Lynch is not the champion. Also, she definitely has to be competing for the championship. Also, she needs to go to AEW because what the hell is happening? So I understand why Vince McMahon doesn't care about wrestling Twitter. I struggle to. Hal says, what do you mean by pricing himself out? Do you mean he won't take any money? No, I mean he's made himself so expensive that people are not willing to sign him. That said, there are ways to do it. I mean, that happened with Rey Mysterio not long ago. Brandon says they should play it back with Rhea versus Asuka once she returns. Also a possibility. Rhea Ripley, as we know, is a heel now, and she will need people to compete against. Simon says, congrats on the Merseyside derby. It was a tough one, but we got there. Sean says, hello, Tom. I hope I didn't miss any news. If I did, can you reiterate? I will shortly, as soon as we've all caught up. AFI James says, Wyatt should go to AEW. AEW have not offered him something that's particularly of interest to him, essentially, at this point. Right, says Tom, who's the favourite to win Money in the Bank? Is it Brock or someone? There's a number of different people. WWE have not yet put together the list of who's going to feature in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So right now, the favourite will be someone who isn't even announced as of yet. I'm going to be blunt. Matt Riddle is the name I'm hearing quite a lot of. 1804 Super says, what's the spoiler? Well, we did just go into quite a bit of detail as to what's happening with Bray Wyatt, what offers are on the table, and what he's planning to do for the next year or so. So I'd probably say that that's the spoiler. Christoph says, listening to you, I just thought about the time when the Firefly Funhouse segments were brand new and how unusual, twisted and fresh they felt. So yeah, I believe Bray's right in thinking there's better media than wrestling for him to tell those stories, but I'd like to see him back for some occasions. I absolutely agree with that. I do think that, and I completely understand the concept from Bray Wyatt, or at least from the circle of Bray Wyatt, from what I'm being told, that he can tell his story much better in alternative media than professional wrestling. I don't blame him. I think that is a much better way of looking at things, and I think he will never get the creative control that he is looking for from wrestling. I don't believe for a second he will ever get the creative control that he was looking for. Simon says, Roman versus Drew at WrestleMania Backlash. That seems the most likely at this point in time. Certainly they were building towards that in the show that we haven't seen yet. Super says, do you think Okada will face Hangman Page at Forbidden Door? I do not. I think Okada will be wanting to take on someone else. Maybe someone like Daniel Bryan. Just going to mention that as a possibility. Sean says, Bo Dallas talked about a return to wrestling, possibly in AEW. Someone would have to offer him a contract first. Simon agrees with you, Si, saying I actually like the women's WWE roster a lot more than the men's roster these days. I think they're doing better with the women's division than the men's at the moment, so I do agree there. Marcus says, Wyndham's smart. Agreed. Because I really don't know where he's doing his tweet fit in WWE. Recorded from a movie above Las Vegas. Not entirely sure what you're saying there, Marcus. If you wouldn't mind rephrasing a little bit for me so I can understand what you're saying. I do agree that Wyndham Rotunda is smart, and also the fact that he's being vague is working in his favour. Super says, remember when I predicted Roman's 1,000-day reign? A subtle flex. It's not, though, because you can't flex on that for another 400 days. Remember, because if we do get to 1,000, you flex away. But remember for then, because it's not 1,000 days yet, so weird flex. Christoph says, I hope Nick is also doing well. Every now and then we still have Nick featuring on this show. If you are a channel member at the moment, you will be hearing from Nick on Tuesday, in fact, when we have a special edition of Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure being released in the members only section on YouTube. If people aren't aware, here on YouTube we have channel memberships now live. You have a number of options for that. You can go for the $1 option, in which you will get all of the exclusive membership content and the green name and your comments read out. And also, once I have enough channel members, I'll be doing exclusive members only live streams to basically take a little more impetus on that. There is also the $5 option, where you get a few more perks, and I think that will be the live stream one more than the $1 one, as it were. And of course you have the $25 one if you are insane. I understand if you are not insane. But you can become a channel member from as little as $1 per month, which is $12 per year. That goes directly into my pocket, and that will go directly into the growth here on YouTube and on Twitch at the same time to ensure my future and my potential full-time wrestling journalism career. So if you have considered that, please do continue to do so. Also, of course, if you have not yet done so, please hit like on the video. Every little thumbs up makes a massive difference and encourages a real growth here when it comes to subscribers and also when it comes to the viewership after the show has already aired. So please consider doing that as well. Hector says, I'm a huge Bray guy, have been since NXT. I feel like if he does go back to WWE, it won't be due to lack of interest from other companies. It'll be because he thinks he's worth more than he actually is. He would go back to the WWE if the WWE were willing to offer him the creative control that he is looking for. Vince McMahon is not, at this point, willing to offer him that. Raymond, hello, says, any idea how long Natalya will be staying in NXT? Just long enough to get Cora Jade over. Yeah, pretty much. She is expected to feature on the WrestleMania Backlash card in a tag team with Shayna Baszler against Sasha Banks and Naomi. However, at the moment, it's a difficult one to read because, to be blunt, Natalya is necessary on NXT. NXT 2.0 is looking for ratings, so they're going to have to sort of encourage certain people to spend more time there. Dolph Ziggler, of course, has been involved recently as well. So it says I actually fell into a coffee table that was not going to break. I like that. I like that. Super says, who do you think will take the titles off of Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy? With the way things are going right now, FTR, to be honest. Mike asks, do you think Cody should be the next WWE champion and be the face of Raw? Now, should is a strong word. I do believe there are other options, certainly options that have been there longer. For example, I feel Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns would be a great way to have a transition for champion. I'd like that. I think that would work for me, Bobby Lashley dethroning Roman Reigns, because he's basically there already at that top level, but it would push him a little bit further. That said, I believe Cody Rhodes will be the one to dethrone Roman. As regards being the face of Raw, he already is. He already is. I wouldn't consider Bobby Lashley to be the number one person on the face side of Raw. Cody Rhodes is already there. He very much is. Ed says, Tom, what are your favourite John Cena matches and favourite Randy Orton matches? For Randy Orton, there's a number of them that I really enjoyed. I always think of the Seth Rollins WrestleMania match. I really enjoyed some of his recent matches. His AJ Styles matches were incredible. Funnily enough, John Cena also has an overlap when it comes to the AJ Styles matches. But for John Cena, there's some really memorable early ones that don't really make for good viewing at the moment. They don't. I liked Roman versus John Cena the first time more than the second time. And I think the best somehow with Randy is still yet to come. But for John Cena, I would go his work with Roman. I would go his work with AJ Styles first and foremost. But I also really enjoyed the squash from Brock Lesnar. I think Cena and Brock Lesnar have made magic as well. Wiggly hello says, sorry I've joined late. What's the spoiler R.E. Bray? Well, you are 23 minutes in, and to be blunt, mate, I have already given that report, but I will recap it once I run out of comments here. So stay tuned. If you've missed it, I will recap. Says, gutted I missed out on FTLOW, but I need to be here, as in here in London. You did, and you've got more important stuff to be focused on, basically, mate, one way or the other. Simon says, congrats to Randy Orton on 20 years anniversary in the WWE. Incredible achievement. Looking forward to 10 more years of RKO and his 20th anniversary celebration tomorrow night on Raw. I do think we're going to get another 10 years of Randy. I really do. He's that damn good, you know? Pardon me. Austin says we got spoiler warning back. Last week was different. It was different. It was a quiet period. Essentially, what you don't see from the work that I do here is the amount of planning that goes into these shows. The amount of scripting, the amount of different conversation topics. It's not enough for me to just click go live and then be like, okay, I'll just answer questions. Now, admittedly, I get a lot of questions here, and I'm very grateful to all of you for that, for providing the fuel that sees these shows go. But every now and then, I do run out of ideas, so I have to take a moment and just sort of relax. Now, I've taken that moment. I've done some planning in that time. We are going to be seeing more content from these channels. It won't all be spoiler warning. It won't all be news-based. I'm looking for something that's a bit more evergreen, that maybe people will find on the YouTube search engine a bit more often and just see how it plays out. So I have a number of ideas which you're going to be seeing over the next few weeks. So keep your eyes on that one. I've got a little notebook here of ideas that I'm working with at the moment. A lot of which you're going to be seeing in the near future. Get the Tables, welcome, says, sorry, just joined. What's this new on Bray? Also, good evening to you, Tom. Well, welcome, Get the Tables. Great to see you. I'm looking forward to your Raw watch party tonight. And for anyone who doesn't know, Get the Tables hosts Raw watch parties and other watch parties that you may want to check out. Now, when it comes to the news on Bray Wyatt, this seems a good time to reiterate a little bit. So, I've been talking about the possibility of Bray in AEW, Bray in WWE, but more importantly, I've been talking about the possibility that Bray Wyatt does not return to wrestling for a while at least, because from the camp of Bray Wyatt, what I'm hearing is that he is simply more firmly of the belief that he can tell the story he wants to tell outside of wrestling better than inside of wrestling. Part of the deal for a long time, anybody who's approached Bray Wyatt has been told he wants a level of creative control that will allow him to tell his story unencumbered. The WWE, as Bray Wyatt developed the Fiend character, got more and more involved. And that created problems because Bray Wyatt stopped being able to tell the overall story that he wanted to tell. Because of that constant interference, Bray Wyatt is looking for assurances from anyone he works with that he will be able to tell the story that he wants to tell first and foremost. They are not willing to give him those assurances. As such, he's currently raising money and fundraising, and he's got some significant backing for more in the world of film and entertainment, and we'll see how things develop there. I don't believe we're going to see Bray Wyatt for a while, unless, essentially, he is so excited for this particular film product and not able to get the money together that he decides to take a lucrative contract purely as a journeyman, I'll take the money and run sort of situation. I don't see Bray Wyatt doing that. Sean says, saw a video where Blake Christian was telling fans at a GCW show to chant Johnny F in wrestling. That he makes the appearance there to face Blake. I think Blake Christian wants to make that happen. It's certainly a possibility. Johnny Wrestling is Johnny Wrestling. He's free to wrestle wherever he would like. And there are certainly a lot of ties. And we're hearing a lot about GCW right now. That would be an interesting concept and a match that I certainly want to see. But I can't say it's going to happen at least yet. Jermaine, welcome, says, hi Tom. For a heel or face side of SmackDown Women's Division, which side does Raquel Rodriguez fall on? She's a face at the moment. She's being scripted and booked as a face going forwards. She will be working with Natalya and Shayna Baszler when she first comes in, and then she will start to work with people such as Shotzi Blackheart as she slowly builds up to a level where she can take on a Becky Lynch or, depending on the draft, a Charlotte Flair. Basically, depending on what side she is. Charlotte versus Raquel Rodriguez is something that the WWE have wanted to do for a while. They will get their way. Still quite a few more comments to read out, so just before I continue, please do consider hitting that like button. That little thumbs up makes a massive difference. We're currently sitting on 17 likes. If we can get to 20, that would be fantastic. As long as I get at least 20, the views the next day on these videos do extremely well. So please do consider pumping a few likes and hitting that thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already. Christoph says, do you think Forbidden Door will result for New Japan in a big push when it comes to new subscriptions to their service? I just wish they added an app and supported HD finally. Do you agree? I do. I absolutely do. New Japan World is a solid service and they're trying to find new ways to get people signed up to it. Having AEW reruns essentially on there and Japanese commentary has been a really big positive, and that is one of the reasons that they've been able to have this Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Now, what will happen at this Forbidden Door pay-per-view is a bit harder to guess, but I'm excited to see what they come up with, because I've got to be honest, there is a lot of very exciting matches that could happen, no less than Okada versus Daniel Bryan, and of course, more importantly, Orange Cassidy and Toru Yano. That's what I personally care about most. Also Jay White and Jon Moxley. Jermaine says, what do you think of Xylee's heel turn? It sucked. Sai says, Tom, do you have any idea what the UK plans are for the WWE network, please? They sold it to Peacock in the US, and I wonder if they plan on doing something similar internationally. They do. They absolutely do. They're looking at interest from Disney Plus, interest from Amazon Prime over in the UK, not at current interest from Netflix. They've been looking to essentially sell off WWE Network content for a while now. They have found a number of people and companies interested. A deal has not been struck as of yet, at least to the same level as Peacock. Essentially, BT Sport are interested, but the WWE aren't particularly willing to have that at this point in time. Larry says, this isn't wrestling, but I was talking to an Australian and an American on Twitch on Friday. The Australian said it's autumn here, to which the American replied, oh right, it's only April here. Bless. Jermaine says, who is the top title seen on SmackDown besides Drew McIntyre? Kinda no one. It's confusing. It's kind of no one after Roman and Drew. Baron Corbin is probably the next name on the list, to be completely honest there, outside of Charlotte Flair getting involved. Simon says, Sasha versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship in Newcastle, Leipzig. Boss Glow versus Queen of Hearts and Spades in London, Paris. Indeed, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair is coming. It's just not coming very soon because it won't be for the championship. Brandon says, that's because AJ just has good matches of everyone. Tom, you are not wrong. Mike Johnson says, John Moxley says he's happy in AEW, but after his contract expires, can Vince make him a great offer so he can sign with the WWE? Vince McMahon will make him a fantastic offer if at any point John Moxley becomes a free agent. Just to be clear on that one. Brandon says, did you see Randy say about him having a lot longer left and he'll still be there when Roman goes to Hollywood? Yes, I did, and he's absolutely correct. Bear with me 1 second, please. I just need to have a couple of massive sneezes. One more? I think I'm okay. I'm okay. Fair enough, get to tables, completely understand. Wiggly says 11 days until D-Day. You mean the pay-per-view? I don't understand. Simon says, Ed, my favourite Randy... Oh, I get you, Wiggly. Simon says, Ed, my favourite Randy Orton matches... This is to Ed who asked the question about favourite John Cena and Randy Orton matches. Feuds are his rivalries with The Undertaker, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, Triple H, Batista. So just a lot of stuff. Sean says, think they will show career highlights for Randy tomorrow? Absolutely. I'm confident Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns is coming soon as well, to be fair. Wiggly says, any news on any WWE public appearances this week? Any way I can find out? Public appearances? No. Haven't heard anything about any public appearances. But a lot of wrestling journalists are going to get a lot of access so that they can ask Drew McIntyre about Tyson Fury. You just wait. You just wait, because you're going to hear a lot about Drew McIntyre and Tyson Fury over the next few days. I promise you that. I'd say you heard it here first, but it's not exactly a surprising concept. Matt, welcome, mate. Says Randy is that good and also not injury prone. Apparently not wanted by Hollywood. A little from column A, a little from column B. It's not that Randy Orton isn't wanted by Hollywood. It's that Hollywood isn't really wanted by Randy Orton. Randy Orton's a wrestler, a very classical wrestler, and he's very happy being that. Simon says, for me, Jermaine, personally, I think that Raquel Moore as a heel. She is currently listed as a face on the internal rosters. We'll see how that plays out. John says, Bray and control your narrative. I may have mentioned that earlier, yes. Just as a possibility. I may have mentioned that earlier. Interesting, Simon. Interesting. You're policing a little bit to make sure there's no pinching going on. Bless you. Bless you, mate. Mike says, Tom is doing great work. I appreciate his hard work. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for joining us today and asking so many questions. The way that YouTube works, I want to share this with everyone. I know I've mentioned it a few times, but I want to mention it as many times as I can. There are certain things that encourage YouTube to advertise this video more than they would without those things. Basically, it's anything considered engagement. Likes will guarantee more viewership on this video. That is a fact. Concurrent viewers will guarantee more viewers on this video. That is a fact. The more viewers you have, the more viewers you can get. That is a fact. There is also a third thing called chat rate. And if I show you right here, you can see all of the individual numbers. So you can see, for example, how many viewers are watching here, how many viewers are watching here, which is at the moment the peak concurrent, and how many are watching here and the like. That is the super chat from Sai earlier today, which I believe is about 3 pence out, so that's confusing. The schedule for the show, etc. Now you can see the actual feed. That's how many views we've had on the video so far, average view duration, and this right here is a chat rate. If I hover over this, it says the chat rate of the stream at the most recently available time. What the chat rate means is that the more people are talking at once, the more the show gets advertised, and you literally see spikes based on that. The peak of 29 viewers, for example, came when we had a chat rate of 4, meaning that quite a few people on the YouTube side were chatting away, at times between themselves. Like Simon, I know you'll basically chat amongst yourselves and encourage people to just chat away with you. That's fantastic. That's really very helpful, because it does encourage an increase in that chat rate and an increase in viewership because of that. Pardon me. That also means, of course, that if I ask certain questions and we do quizzes or anything like that, that also increases the chat rate. So at some point, doing any sort of quiz or prediction show, that can be really helpful. Matthew Brennan says, I didn't know YouTube viewing helped you more, so I switched over there and gave you the thumb. Thank you very much for your thumb, Matthew. Thank you very kindly. Every little does help. We are currently on 19 likes. One more takes us to 20. There are videos, probably the most successful videos that I had were reaching 50 or 40 or 50 likes. And we were getting 1.8 to 2,000 views. That is how much difference those likes make. It really cannot be overstated how big it is in the grand scheme of things to the growth of this channel. Thank you everyone who continues to hit like on every video, who continues to come in here and just chat away. I am very grateful. That is of course not to say that there isn't a benefit on Twitch. Same thing happens. The more viewers we have on Twitch, the more likely we are to be found and the more likely we are to have someone new following us. So there's lots of different routes for it. I'm focusing a bit more on YouTube at the moment, but Twitch is still a very important part of the overall structure, I promise you that. Hector says, hey Tom, with Randy Orton reaching 20 years in WWE, how would you assess his career so far, and is it almost certain he's a first ballot Hall of Famer? Absolutely. Randy Orton is one of the best to ever do it. One of the best to ever do it, and probably will go down in history as one of the best to ever do it. I feel he's one of those that after he eventually retires, he'll be appreciated even more, because there is no one left like Randy Orton. The closest we got was Triple H. Now that he's gone, there is no one left like Randy Orton. Maybe Baron Corbin could step into that position, but even that is a stretch. Wiggly says, when is Goldberg coming back? He is not. Jermaine says, so currently for a face side, as far as face side goes on SmackDown Women's Division in this order, we have Ronda, Sasha, Naomi, Lacey Evans, Raquel Rodriguez, and Aaliyah. Am I right so far? And so currently the heel side is Charlotte Flair, Shayna, Sonya Deville, Natalya, Shotzi, and Xia Li. You did forget Shayna Baszler there. Still feel that SmackDown still needs a few more female heels. I think we're okay, actually, to be honest, with SmackDown at the moment. I think we're okay when it comes to the face-heel dynamic. I think they're quite well balanced in the grand scheme of things. Simon says, I wonder if Amazon Prime's Jeff Bezos or Netflix have any interest in the WWE network in the European market. Amazon Prime, yes. Netflix, to my knowledge, no. Sean says, according to PW Insider, there are currently no reported plans to call up Kaylee Ray and Dakota Kai. I'm not surprised by that. Not surprised at all. Brandon says, do you think Fury is a given now for the UK pay-per-view after last night? Not necessarily. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't at least make an appearance, though. I don't think he would necessarily wrestle, but it certainly would be a lot of fun. Barely interesting, welcome mate, says, do you think Roman Reigns is destined to follow Cena and Dwayne to Hollywood when his current main event run winds down? Our last video on Friday was in-depth on Hollywood. Let me reiterate the Roman Reigns section here. So there is quite a bit of interest in Roman Reigns from Hollywood. Not to the same level of Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss, who we also discussed, but still quite a lot of interest in Roman Reigns. The problem with this is that Roman Reigns seems to be very clearly focused on the WWE right now. So interest from Hollywood is not of interest to him. He certainly has made an appearance supporting The Rock in a film during his time away, but when it comes to Roman Reigns himself, interest in Hollywood seems to be very, very low. That said, after this championship run, that is when I think things will start to change. Ronaldinho says, the thing is, Sasha versus Charlotte feud doesn't need a title. It absolutely doesn't. And that's okay, because it's not going to get one. There's not going to be a championship for that. But the feud might still happen at least. Hello, Corey. How you doing, mate? Wiggly says, I ought to like Tyson Fury, but he's so politically incorrect. Well, if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. You never need to like anyone, let's be fair. Last night in his post-match interview, he also said some not-so-nice things. That's very much his brand as well, let's be fair. JJ says, hey Tom, I'm very late. Did I miss anything? You missed the entire Bray Wyatt report, I'll say that. But it's okay, because as you guys know, I will typically try and get the news out at the beginning of these videos. The Bray Wyatt news essentially was in the first minute. It started in the first minute of this video. So you can always pop back and check it out afterwards. You can always pop back. Sean says, is anyone excited for the DLC for 2K22 coming out on Tuesday? We're getting Omos, Umaga and others. What I will say on 2K22 is that they're doing really great work at the moment. Just really great work at some of the DLC content and the patches. They are improving this game quite a lot, but it does tell me that when the game first came out, it still wasn't finished. Hello Larry, I will ignore you, don't you worry. Guys, we all have to ignore Larry. He said so, he said so. Thank you as well, Corey, for popping over to YouTube, even if it was just to say hi and leave a like. I'm always very grateful of that. Brandon says, Randy taking one of the titles from Roman while still with Riddle would low-key be kind of lit. I would really like that idea as well, particularly after they lose the tag team championships to the Usos, because then revenge will be on Randy's mind, and I just think they can do interesting things with that. Austin says, when do you think Roman will lose the WWE title? I would say before the year is up. Pardon me. I'd be looking at SummerSlam for the WWE title. However, as I've mentioned before and as has been confirmed by Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast and the Wrestling Observer, when it comes to the WWE and Universal Unified Championships, they are 100% making it up as they go along. Mike Johnson being very nice here. Says, please like, subscribe and share all his video and support him to make top creator on YouTube as he deserves. Acknowledge Tom. That's very nice, Mike. I very much appreciate that. Thank you. Brandon says that maybe it was set up for Riddle turning on Randy to feud for the title. And I do think that could be a lot of fun. It just makes sense for me going forwards, and also means potentially that, let's say Randy defeats Roman for the championship, the WWE Championship at SummerSlam, but Roman keeps the Universal Championship until January, as an example. Well, that takes us to Survivor Series, where I'm thinking they have to have the split championships again, because otherwise what's the point of Survivor Series? And we would have a rematch, at which point Roman could get some revenge on Randy and make it a bit of 50-50. If, of course, Riddle hasn't already won it. Austin says, I like that Shane has been on TV, but I'm hoping for that singles run to start. Maybe Money in the Bank. I don't think they're going to be a tag team all that long, to be fair, because it just doesn't make that much sense to me. Natalia's not the sort of person who really sticks around in tag teams. What can I say? Brandon says, SmackDown women is alright. We need more women on Raw. More women are coming to Raw. The return of Asuka, the return of Bayley, they're all coming soon. Brandon says, how's WWE's relationship with 2K? Are they still keen on working together? They've essentially been waiting, just waiting for the right moment so that the WWE can say either you've done a great job, pat, 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 or the opposite. You've just done terrible. Now, they've not really committed to either of that, but from what I can tell, the WWE are happy with the job that 2K have done, at least on a case-by-case basis. They're waiting to see what happens next year. Jermaine says, honestly, Ronda is not needed on SmackDown anymore. More needed on Raw at this moment and beyond. It is time for Shayna because she can do anything and everything Ronda can do. You say that, but we've not seen Ronda do anything yet, and that's the issue for me. She's been in one feud, and she's not really been involved with anyone else in any capacity. So I can't really sit here and say SmackDown needs or doesn't need, because if we get the opportunity for Ronda Sasha again, I think suddenly people are going to be very interested. if we get the opportunity for Ronda Shayna, I think people are going to be very interested. So I'm waiting for that moment to come. Also, Sai says, I've been playing 2K22 in GM mode. It's not very smart. The opposing GM put Dana Brooke versus Dakota Kai's WrestleMania main event. I won. Ooh. Well, that's not good. Corey says, doing good. Been busy with sports and other stuff. How are you doing? I watched a few of your videos the other night. You've been doing some great work. Thank you, Corey. It's been a little while, and I really do hope you're well. It's great seeing your name pop up in the Discord and the like as well. I'm really glad that you're doing good, mate. I'm really glad you're doing good. Sean says, if Alexa isn't back by SummerSlam, should we accept we won't see her at all this year? I'm confident Alexa Bliss will be back way before SummerSlam. I expect her back sometime after WrestleMania Backlash because they're just leaving space for that feud. I don't think it'll be long, and she's going to be treated like a big deal when she returns because she's going to be a big deal when she returns. Larry says, RK Bro is too good a tag team. I'd rather they stay together. Me too, but to be blunt, it's only a couple of months away from RK Bro outliving the Shield. So it's not actually been that short a time. Cookie shouts, Finn Balor must turn heel and destroy Theory on WWE Raw. Wouldn't be a heel move. That would just be a face move. You could literally just maul him. You could like stab Austin Theory several times and it would still be considered a face move because he's so effective a heel. Which is both good and bad. Freaks of Wrestling says, when is Alexa Bliss coming back? Very shortly. Plans are already being put in place. I expect her back roughly after WrestleMania Backlash. Not long at all. Hector says, say WWE does keep the title on Roman through Mania. Could this tactic possibly hurt contract negotiations with either network with this uncertainty? Or as long as Roman is featured, they don't care. Both Fox and USA are very, very happy to have Roman Reigns featuring on their network. Very, very happy to have Roman Reigns featuring on their network. When it comes to contract negotiations, it won't hurt one bit. Brandon said you could have Randy win the belt but have Riddle win Money in the Bank, which would be cool. I did, after all, mention earlier on in this very stream, Riddle is an interesting favourite at the moment for Money in the Bank. If we do get the Randy Orton-Roman Reigns feud, which I'm confident is coming, certainly if Riddle is a Money in the Bank winner, it makes things a little bit exciting, doesn't it? It really does. Brandon says, is it going to be a while before we've seen Brock in the title picture even when he does return? I don't know. Brock, when he does return, is still Brock Lesnar. He's still going to be a big deal. I'm hoping we get, for example, Brock versus Sheamus. I'd like to see Brock versus Sheamus as an example there. I'd also like to see Brock versus Gunter. I'd like to see Brock versus Gunter. I think there's good stuff there. We've just had a very, very brief troll. It's the same usual troll who clearly does not have much of a life on YouTube. Thank you, Ed, for dealing with that nice and quickly. Here's the thing. They are trying to say that I'm a racist and also that Vince McMahon murdered Name Redacted. I think people would be more likely to believe the first if you clearly weren't batshit insane QAnon conspiracy theorist. You know? It's like you could not be that guy. But you've decided to be that guy. So, you know, what? Anyway, Sean says, Tom does great work. He's the GOAT of wrestling journalism. Thank you kindly, Sean. I do appreciate that. Jaden says, hey, Tom, what did I miss? The entire report on Bray Wyatt. It's at the beginning of this show. So once we've wrapped up in about 10 minutes, or in fact a bit less, depending on how many comments we have left to get through, by all means, zip back to the beginning and check out the news. Jaden says, will the Usos win the Raw Tag Team Championships? I do believe so, yes. My prediction is that the Usos and Roman Reigns will be undisputed bloodline. The undisputed bloodline. But that's good. I'm gonna tweet that. I'm just gonna tweet that. This is a concept. How do I phrase it? Okay. Oh, spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Undisputed bloodline. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Brandon says, are we going to play Lashley versus Lesnar back again at some point? Probably not. The main reason we haven't seen a lot of that is because of Bobby Lashley. There is a lack of interest on both sides. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, Brock Lesnar, because of Brock Lesnar. There is a lack of interest on both sides at this point, because Bobby has been looking for this match for a long time. Meanwhile, Brock has been dodging it for a long time because he knows he would be booked to lose. Now, they worked their way around it. Brock Lesnar won in the Fatal 5-Way and then lost shortly afterwards because Roman. So he was protected in it. But as much as anything, it's just confusing. And I don't feel either man are that excited to come back to that feud. Brandon says that the Viking Raiders totally been derailed of getting their tag titles at this point. Yeah. The Viking Raiders have been very clearly defined down to a point where they no longer are contenders for anything in the tag divisions. Austin says, do we got spoiler warning tomorrow? Yes, there will be spoiler warning tomorrow. Also, did Bret Hart quietly sign with WWE? Still not sure. What I did find interesting is some of the phrasing that's being used on this. What I saw was a report stating that the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer has confirmed that Bret Hart has signed with WWE. Dave Meltzer is the one who initially reported it. So he can't confirm what he himself has reported. Someone else has to confirm it. That's how two-source systems work. Dave Meltzer is the first source. Now you need to find a second source to confirm that report. What people are doing instead on these wrestling sites is they're looking for another Dave Meltzer report and saying, oh, it's confirmed, we have a second source. No, it's still Dave Meltzer, just to be clear. Sean says, if WWE ever unifies the women's title, which I hope they don't, would Ronda be the one to unify them? Yes, and that's one of the main reasons I don't think they will. Wiggly says, when is Asuka coming back? Very shortly. As I've said a few times, when it comes to Asuka, she was cleared and expected to return in February, then March, then April. Now it looks like she'll be returning either tomorrow, like immediately tomorrow, or shortly afterwards. There is a plan in place for her to return tomorrow. So let's see how that plays out. I'd like it to happen because I think it definitely needs to happen eventually. But there was a plan in place at Elimination Chamber and it did not come to pass. So I certainly can't sit here and promise anything, as you guys know. It just is what it is at this point. Wheeler says, what did you think of the game today? Everton for the drop. Yeah, 100%. Leeds might still be pulled into it. Aston Villa might still be pulled into it. But yeah, definitely looking at Everton for the drop. Wiggly, I know you're a big fan of Asuka. You do keep asking the questions. Brandon says, what's your favourite Backlash if you can think of one? I can think of one, and that would be Backlash in 1999, when The Rock was challenging Steve Austin and was shortly afterwards kicked out of the corporation. That was just a really good Backlash. Brandon says, I only ask because I'm watching past Backlash events in preparation for WrestleMania Backlash this year. Is that something people are interested in, by the way? Like historical reviews of pay-per-views? Because that's certainly something I could do. We could certainly do that at some point. Just do like historical pay-per-view reviews. If people are interested in that, it adds that sort of channel building stuff where there's just plenty of reasons for people to Google search and to find different YouTube videos, and the channel keeps growing because of that. The one downside of being primarily a live creator is that there's going to be no reason in a couple of days for anyone to watch this video. No reason whatsoever. Meanwhile, my video about when Bayley's going to return from September continues to get views every single day. Every single day. My video about Bayley's return schedule gets views. So I do think maybe I need more evergreen content, as it were. Sean says, do you agree with Tenille and Madison defeating the Inspiration to retain the tag belts? Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think the Inspiration they are the sort of people who do not require championships. They don't require championships. And that's a positive. Absolute positive. Larry says, if RK Bro do split, it should involve Randy telling Riddle to get a haircut. Riddle throws a tantrum, knocking a plastic cup on the floor, stamping his feet and saying to Randy, you're not my dad, at which point Randy walks away shaking his head and muttering to himself. Firstly, that sounds amazing. Secondly, I think we all know it's going to be an RKO out of nowhere on Matt Riddle. And I think we're all very excited for it. Christoph, thank you kindly for your super chat and your donation there. It will be coming up just in a moment. Saying, I can happily confirm the report that Tom and Nick are two cool cats. Thank you very kindly, Christoph. Just so everyone is aware, we do have super chat options turned on and available. We also have channel membership options turned on and available. There will be an episode of Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure going live in the members only section Tuesday, which marks the second members only video. There is members only content coming soon, and some of which has already been created. For as little as $1 per month, you can join the channel. John Seula, let me know if I've pronounced your name wrong, please. I just want to make sure I get it right. John Seula says, do you know when Jon Moxley's contract is up? Yes, very shortly. Couple of months, and Jon Moxley will be a free agent unless AEW tie him down in that time. Now, AEW certainly could. They can afford to do that, but it's very much a question of will they and when will they. Sai says, I'd be down for historical reviews or even watch-alongs. Watch-alongs might be harder because I suspect it'd be a very low viewership given where we are at this point. You know? So, watch-alongs might be a little bit harder. Oh, the troll came back. Apparently I'm a murderer now. Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. Anyway, Brandon says Cena versus Edge World Heavyweight title and Triple H, Batista and Shane O'Mac versus Legacy for the WWE title. Chris Jericho versus The Rock. Not The Rock. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Oh, I remember that. That's bad. Christian versus Jack Swagger for the ECW title, and Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy for a feud from 2009 Backlash. I mean, that's some options. I remember the Jeff Hardy Matt Hardy one quite strongly. That's the big one for me. Sean says, if Moxley returns to WWE, would Renee come back? I have no idea. They are not the same person. So we cannot sit here and say this or that. One of these does not inform the other. There is no relation to those two things. Brandon says, I'd be down for historical reviews, especially if I was watching them on the network to hear your thoughts too. Okay, that could be cool. That could be cool. We could certainly look into something there. Joey, I see you've retracted your message, but I've still got it, so I'm going to read it. It says, did WWE sign Bret Hart to lure in FTR? Well, I don't know for certain that Bret Hart has been signed as of yet, and as regards luring in FTR, once again, those two things are not quite related. There isn't actually a direct connection between those two things, so I don't think so. I don't think we could really sit here and say that that's happening. Brandon says, when do you think we will get a Shield reunion at the earliest? Well, firstly, we would need to have Jon Moxley available. We would need to have Jon Moxley available in order for it to have a Shield reunion. So, given that we don't know if that's happening, I can't say we're going to have a Shield reunion anytime soon. I really can't say that. Sean says, I say Backlash 2018 was the worst one. I don't remember Backlash 2018. Unless that's the one which had the Great Khali return. Remember that one? That sucked. The first Backlash 2016, when AJ Styles won the championship from Dean Ambrose, that was a damn good show. That was the first brand exclusive pay-per-view, the first one for SmackDown, and it was just a really good show. Just a solid show. How would you best book it for a long-term run if Moxley came back? I wouldn't, personally. I'd have Moxley come back and immediately stand opposite Roman Reigns and go to war. I wouldn't have a Shield reunion because I would have the Tribal Chief standing alone. At this point in time, I would rather have the Bloodline than the Shield. I think the Bloodline now has surpassed the Shield then. And Wiggly says, I remember Goldberg versus The Rock at Backlash. Yeah, I don't. I've definitely watched that match. I don't remember it. Don't remember it at all. We have reached the hour. Christoph, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry. It's one of those things. Nobody's going to listen to a guy who does what that troll does. But it has boosted my chat rate. And just boosted my viewership. Here's the thing. Trolls do you a favour. They don't seem to realize it, but they're giving engagement to the show. And by giving engagement to the show, all that's happening is that more people are coming in. Thus, more likes are coming in. That chat rate going up to 6 has just knocked our likes up to 27. Has just knocked our viewership back up after a bit of a dip. It's helpful to have trolls. They are wonderful and do many, many favours. And honestly, nobody's going to believe that guy. Nobody. Look at the crap he's saying. Look at it. That's like proper QAnon bullshit. This is your guy? Nobody's going to believe that guy. It's one of those, like, you know the people on the street corners who wear the boards and they're carrying around stuff like, get religious now before the meteor comes exactly in Seattle. Nobody's going to believe that guy. Zai says, do AEW guys have no competes in their contracts once they expire? Once a contract is expired, there is no possibility of a non-compete. Because once your contract is expired, you are not beholden to any clauses featured therein. Sean says, Backlash 2018 started with Miz versus Seth for the IC title, ended with Roman versus Joe, which fans were leaving during. Yes, I do remember that one. Thank you for the reminder. Miz and Seth was good. Everything else was crap. Brandon also says, Miz and Seth was a banger. It absolutely was. RH Parvez says, get a life, to the guy who comes in and just shouts lies. Sean says, also Backlash 2018 featured Alexa versus Nia, and Alexa was apparently hurt in that match. There's a number of matches, unfortunately, that Alexa was hurt in. And Joey says, do you know what the plans are for Volta on the main roster? Yes, I do. They're going to be pushing him against jobbers for a while. Quite a while. He's on the heel side of the dynamic. The plan is to build him as a monster heel, similar in part to, for example, how Rusev was built. And there is definitely a high possibility of championships in the future. They have their eye on an Intercontinental Championship run for Volta near the end of the first year or so. I would be expecting Ricochet to lose that championship near the end of this year, or in fact, let's say September, October time. If that's when he loses it, then Volta is the guy, because the IC Championship is something that they definitely have a lot of focus on when it comes to Volta. Brandon says, Miz versus Ziggler at Backlash 2016 for the IT title, a banger too. I think that was Backlash. I think it was. Christoph says, that's good to know, Tom. Oh, thank you, mate. I'll try my best to explain. Wiggly says, Backlash is just rubbish. You know the deal. Says, thanks for the informative content as always. Keep up the great work. Thank you very kindly. I appreciate that. I try my best. I do try my best. Sean says, poor Ricochet will get chopped into 2023. Yes. And isn't that going to be a really exciting match? Brandon says Volta versus Cesaro would have been amazing. It would have been, but unfortunately the moment is not to come. Oh, Corey says I actually talked to Ziggler about that match. He loved it, and that's Barely Interesting and myself. It was a very good match. Brandon is excited by Volta versus Sheamus. Essentially, Volta versus All of Fight Night would just be a great time by everyone. Sai says, great show again. Thanks as always. Thank you, guys. And anyone who is watching The Troll on YouTube, be aware, this is why I'm so grateful for the people who do support, because this is the crap I have to deal with on a daily basis. People with, like, zero IQ, who clearly don't understand kayfabe or wrestling, and seem to honestly think that I've funded the murder of people via YouTube. I haven't even been monetized for more than a month. And you think I used this YouTube, which didn't exist during that time, to fund a murder? You think I have more money than Vince McMahon? And that's why I work on YouTube. How brainless do you have to be? Joey says, do you know why NXT is sending some of their talent over to NXT UK? Yes. They believe that they need a bit of further development and a bit more airtime, and that's why they're on NXT UK. NXT UK at the moment does not have a lot of talent, and they've been releasing a couple of people. And that is our show. We will be live tomorrow for more spoiler warning. We will not be doing a Raw watch party, but there are plenty of other people whose work you can check out for that. Now, as regards Twitch, Ed, I believe, gave me a link right near the top so that we could send a raid on the Twitch side. And I would like to do that because, as you guys know, it's Ed, and Ed is a wonderful person. So we're going to send a raid over to Allege of Black. Okay. Be aware that this channel has follower or subscriber only chat active. Yeah, certainly, Wiggly. If there are raid options that you guys are interested in, we can certainly do that. Larry says, I only came out here, fear you might get me next. Now I found it's not true. And Xander says, is pay-per-view tonight? It is not tonight. No, it's a little while yet. Yeah, Wiggly, we can certainly get some raid suggestions going. I do feel like I need to get back into that process, as it were, but I do always I kind of forget the whole raid concept. But just as we wrap up and before I press the raid now button, I just want to say huge thank you to everyone who's been watching on YouTube, who's been watching on Twitch, who's been laughing at the trolls. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.